In this video, we'll demonstrate how to respond to a Jehovah's Witness when they say that nobody has ever seen God. Reminder to hit the subscribe button below and turn on the notification bell to stay up to date as new videos come out. And if you're interested in supporting this ministry, just go to justscripture.org and click on the support page. A verse that Jehovah's Witnesses love to use is John 1:18 that says that no one has ever seen God. Funny thing is that they always stop right there, because the second half of the verse in the New World Translation says, except the only begotten God who is at the Father's side. The opening prologue of John's Gospel is about Jesus. So the New World translators had to make a lowercase g for God here, or else they got a Godhead problem on their hands. But you might want to challenge them with, well, what about Jehovah's tent meeting with Abraham just prior to Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction in Genesis 18 through 19? It says, and the Lord, or in Hebrew, Yahweh, appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. Here begins a Sunday school lesson that we all know about. The Lord comes with two angels to meet with Abraham to announce that in 1 year's time that he and Sarah will have a son. After the meeting, the two angels stroll down to Sodom to have a look-see, where Lot tries to protect them when the whole townspeople come after him to, well, let's just say it, try to rape them. Back on top of the hillside, though, Abraham asks the Lord to spare all of the residents if there just be 50 righteous found within the whole city. The Lord says yes to it, but Abraham continues to lower the bar down with the Lord, with him agreeing to each amount, and then they finally settle in on 10 that could be found in the city, and God would spare it. Basically, this is just enough to cover Lot's family, but there weren't even 10 to which Sodom and Gomorrah had to be finally destroyed with fire and brimstone rain down upon them. But the main thing here for us is to show that the actual visible Yahweh was present in front of Abraham, and not some angelic rep for Jehovah that Jehovah's Witnesses try to use in an attempt to dodge the obvious and plain reading of the text. Note that the New World Translation, in all of these cases where the Hebrew Tetragrammaton is used for the name of God, is that it is said in the New World Translation of Jehovah. So it literally says that Jehovah physically appeared unto Abraham. Now, the notion that Jehovah can be physically visible in front of a person doesn't just run contrary to Jehovah's Witnesses' belief about John 1:18a, but also to John 4:24 that says that Jesus told the Samaritan woman that God is spirit and that we must worship him in spirit and in truth. So to them, this is their 1-2 punch to rebut any Christian's idea over the idea that Jesus is God incarnate. Both of these, though, are very easy to explain because both of them are speaking about God the Father, as John 6:46 says that, not that anyone has ever seen the Father, except the one, Jesus, who is from God. He has seen the Father. So, John 1:18a is talking about God the Father. And in the case with John 4:24, it is also speaking about the Father, because Jesus began his whole response to the Samaritan woman by saying that true worshipers of the Father will do so in spirit and in truth. So, both of these verses are in reference to God the Father, which is also what it will be read in the New World Translation. But how does all of this jive with the idea that Jehovah appeared to Abraham? Well, first off, this isn't the first time that Yahweh has appeared to Abraham. It's actually the third recorded time. The first time comes after Abram's initial call in Genesis 12:7. The next time occurs in chapter 17, where Abram gets renamed to Abraham and is commanded to be circumcised. verse 3 says that Abram fell on his face and God, Elohim in Hebrew, talked with him. So because of these two prior meetings, that when Abram lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him, and when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself towards the ground, Abram knew exactly who this was. He knew because of the prior encounters that he had with the Lord before this. And then in verse 3, he says, My Adonai, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. See the last part here, that Abraham is going to wash Jehovah's feet? So Abraham, the father of our faith, has said plainly in these first 4 verses that Jehovah physically appeared in front of him, that Yahweh looks like a man, no different than any other human earth dweller, and that the Lord has a physical, corporeal body by washing his feet. But it doesn't end there, because in the next 4 verses, Abraham asked them to stay around so he could feed them. He told Sarah to make bread. He then personally picked out the best calf and set it before them, before Jehovah and the 2 other men, that is. And then the last part of verse 8 says, and they did eat. So you can see that there is no textual way to argue against the idea that these 3 men weren't physically present in front of Abraham, including Jehovah. But a Jehovah's Witness is likely going to try to dismiss the whole notion and just say that they are all 3 angelic beings. So what I'm going to do is to show you 3 textual reasons why the 3rd man, who has up until this point has only been referred to as Yahweh or Adonai, is not the same type of being as his 2 associates. And FYI, the 3rd reason is quite a devastating blow to any Unitarian. First is that the visible Yahweh tells Abraham that they will have a son next year, and Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. And upon overhearing this, it says, therefore Sarah laughed within herself. But here comes the kicker. It says that she laughed within herself, meaning that there was no audible sound to be heard. In other versions, it will say to herself. The English Revised says within herself. The Septuagint says in herself. And I like how the Douay-Rheims says that she laughed secretly. So what's the point? The point is that it says next that the Lord knew she internally laughed about it, meaning that he knew her thoughts, and by doing so displayed omniscient power, and only God has this attribute. Now this type of demonstration of power should sound very familiar to us, because after Jesus called Philip, that in John 1:45 it says that Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and in the prophets also wrote about, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nathanael replied, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Philip replied, come and see. Then Jesus saw Nathanael coming towards him and exclaimed, look, a true Israelite in whom there is no deceit. Nathanael asked him, how do you know me? Jesus replied, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Nathanael answered him, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. It's not a coincidence after John's opening prologue that, yes, he did call Jesus the Word God, that he gives a story about him displaying his omniscient power. And even Nathanael called Jesus the King of Israel. If you were to track on all the Old Testament references to who exactly is the King of Israel, that you would only run into verses like Isaiah 44:6 that says, "Thus saith the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts. I am the first, and I am the last, and besides me, there is no God." So I hope you see that how all you have to do is connect all these little dots between the Old Testament and into the New to see that Jesus is the Messiah God that was promised. Now, on to reason 2 as to why the Jehovah character is not merely some just angelic representative. If you skip ahead to 19:1, that the two men are now called angels that went down into Sodom and met with Lot. Interesting that in verse 5, it reverts back to calling the two angels men again. And the point here to be made is that the Jehovah figure is never referred to as an angel as these two are. And going back to Abraham begging Yahweh down to spare Sodom, that he calls the Lord the judge of all the earth, and Adonai till the end of the conversation. Abraham never once used language that he was just talking with Jehovah's representative. But back down in Sodom, Lot knew how to address the two angels by giving them a lesser degree title of rank. And in verses 15 through 16, the two angels are described distinctly away from Jehovah. The key takeaway here in the second point is that there is no textual reason to declare that the Lord, who has appeared to Abraham in chapters 17 through 19, as anything but Jehovah God himself. So, if a Jehovah Witness tries to pivot off this, or keep insisting, no, it's just an angel, just keep asking them, where in the text does it say that? And then wait. See how odd and awkward that gets? Now on to the third reason. Simply put, who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah? God. And when it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, and when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. So there is absolutely no debating the clear statement here that God is the one who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, does this run counter, or does it challenge our viewpoint? Because in verse 13 it says that the two angels are going to destroy this place. No. It just simply means that they are just part of God's army and part of the process. In what fashion exactly? The text is not explicit. But the two angelic men's reason is because Jehovah has sent us to destroy it. The two angels clearly refer to the third figure as Yahweh. And since they came from heaven with this divine figure, they knew 100% who he was. So every single character in the story has declared that this is God himself, and never not once has there been any type of illusion that this is just a mere angelic representative of Jehovah, like Jehovah's Witnesses try to claim. Well, great, Brad, but this just seems to add to your second reason that you already gave to us. Yes, it does. But it's the build-up to Sodom's ultimate destruction, because we know without a shadow of a doubt that Jehovah is on the ground right now. And after the two angels got Lot and his two daughters out and made it safely to Zoar, that verse 24 says, "Then the Lord Yahweh rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire." Now in our whole discussion here, we know conclusively that this is the visible, corporal Jehovah God himself on the ground. Now, look at what the last part of verse 24 says. From the Lord out of heaven. Do you see it? I'll read the whole thing together again. Then Yahweh, who is on the ground, rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from Yahweh out of heaven. Folks, the text just said there's two Jehovahs, one on the ground and another one in heaven at the same moment in time. Genesis 19:24 just declared that there is divine plurality, because how did the Lord, who was on the ground, rain brimstone from the Lord out of heaven? There's two persons here, both being described as Yahweh. One is in heaven, and the other one is on the ground that we have read. Yet, there is only one God. And this is why we believe in the Godhead, because it's actually in the Bible. Now, does this mean we fully understand 100% how the whole three yet one thing works? No, because we are temporal beings trying to explain the eternal. Now, you might just be thinking, well, is this just some KJV translation thing and it's just them trying to force the whole Godhead and doctrine into the book? No, because the NIV, the ESV, and the Berean study have lords, two lords, in the scene, as well does the NASB, the World English Bible. The ASV uses Jehovah in both places instead of Lord. But you might be thinking, well, what about the non-Christian versions? You still have two Jehovahs actually in the New World Translation. My guess, though, is that they try to put that little comma in there because the text, that is, the Bible, was contradicting their beliefs. So maybe in their mind, this comma somehow keeps these two Jehovahs as the same figure. But regardless of that, they still have a problem because Jehovah was still visibly present on the ground in front of Abraham. So they're still stuck either way. But none of that matters, because before Christianity even came around, that the Septuagint translators 300 years before Jesus' physical bodily resurrection had two distinct lords in the scene. And even today, you will see two Adonais in the complete Jewish Bible, and they flat out reject the notion of divine plurality today, although it has been in there in the Torah since the beginning. Reminder, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, hit the like button, and leave a comment. And don't forget to look in the description below for the link to the handout so that you'll always be ready when they come knocking at the door. But in the meantime, stay salty.